I think inclusive growth is so fundamental because that's really all about the public, how they understand economic success and what's important to them. It's jobs, it's income, it's skills, it's their health. So inclusive growth and reducing inequality is a fundamental thing which policymakers, politicians and indeed business have a role in.
Well, from our perspective at the OECD, we work with 35 countries and many others who are not yet members. And just in terms of looking at the global kind of trends and inequalities, which you see are on the rise systematically. And at the same time, we have a context in many countries, not less the UK and the US, where people are increasingly feeling left behind and left out of the economy, that it's not working for them. And so when we've had a situation where for 3 decades inequality has been rising, where you have the rise of populism and other voices, I think we need to change the game a bit, and we need to change not just the narrative, but really how we approach growth. And so inclusive growth is really about how do you bring everyone back into the economy in a way that's not just a rebranding effort, but really rethinking how you do things.
There are 4 reasons I probably think inclusive growth is important in local government. First thing is it goes to the heart of our purpose, which is to create prosperity for a place and its people now and for the future. So that's prosperity for everybody and the full flourishing of every individual in the place that I'm responsible for. The second thing is we absolutely see the consequences for people's lives if we don't get inclusive growth right. That's both in terms of productivity of our businesses, the balance sheet of the city, and also in the demand that comes through the doors of the city. And the fourth reason for us, quite importantly, is we need a strong tax base of people in good work can pay taxes, which creates the revenues that I need to be there for people whose lives aren't working out the way they intended.
Inclusive growth is very important. When I travel by underground from my city, Rotterdam, I can tell at every station in the underground how healthy people are. And there's a combination with how healthy are and are they employed or not. So if we can employ people in Rotterdam, even the poor, that means their health condition will improve and they live longer. So it's as simple as that.
I think it's important right now because nothing is exposed more than Brexit, that people are feeling really left behind and they don't know how to actually catch up or become included. But I don't think we as policymakers yet know what it is that makes people feel included, and I think that's the real danger of the debate we're having right now.
Inclusive growth is the most important issue that the UK faces today. Whether we're thinking about kind of post-Brexit and the Prime Minister's ambition to create a country that works for everyone, whether we're worried about global events with a rise of left and right populism or Trump, all of it speaks to the same underlying problem, that people feel disaffected, they don't feel connected to the economy or sometimes even to society or the way our politics operates. Inclusive growth is about all of that.
Inclusive growth is really important to how we take this economy forward from where it is now. For too long, too many people, job isn't really working. It's not paying, it's not covering their costs, it's breaking up communities. So what we need to see is a different approach to how we really think about growth going forward.
It's really important to ask people what inclusion and what growth looks like to them, and I think that's a bit of the danger, is that all of us with the best intentions in the world are kind of saying what we think inclusion and growth look like rather than asking people what that feels like. So some of what we're doing in that space is, so for example, Birmingham City Council owns a lot of land and assets. So we're moving into a space where we ask people what they want to do with those assets. What would you build or what would you create with that asset, rather than us telling you what you can have.
Well, cities are the engines of the economy. They're the centers of global trade and investment. And in many countries, because they have devolved powers, they're actually the vanguard of problem solving. So if the issues are about how do we invest in early childhood education, or how do we give young adults access to the technological skills they'll need to participate and prosper in the economy, cities are actually designing and delivering many of these strategies, and frankly, in many countries like the United States, they're financing them. And so what we're seeing with this growth of instability in national governments and a drift away from problem solving, it's being devolved down ipso facto to cities.
What qualities are really important in a city mayor? So I think at the heart of any good city mayor is a very strong compass that's pointed to what I would call true north, which is actually about that commitment and that passion for its place, and for that place to be everything it possibly can be. And that goes with that commitment to prosperity, that everybody can see that is their driving intention. That is what drives them, rather than ego or vested interest. And what they are seeking to do is to actually bring all aspects of the place, its different sectors and agencies together to make the most of that place, to get all the talents of a place fully in play. And I think that convening power, strong moral purpose, a very strong narrative, the convening power of the mayor, and the willingness to compromise, to let go, and actually to do this through building common cause rather than through exhortation or regulation.
Well, any great leader is going to lead with values. In our case, it's lifelong learning, health, and compassion. So just be very clear with your citizens what they can expect of you to produce an economy where everybody's got a shot to win.
The role of the private sector couldn't really be more important in inclusive growth. And after all, the private sector are the creators of jobs. You know, an organisation or employer's ethos, business model and practices is going to shape the nature of work and the experience of work for people. So an inclusive growth strategy without employers is meaningless.
I think for inclusive growth to work in a place, the whole ecosystem of economic leadership in a place needs to work together. So that means the public sector, the private sector and the third sector all having a shared economic vision about the potential of a place and what they need to do to try and achieve it. So I think inclusive growth won't work unless the private sector in a place is fully on board and is contributing towards delivering on that agenda.
I think relationships between public, private and third sector need to be invested in. There need to be fora for people to converse, and that's not just in person but using technology to really engage people in the debate. Really, if growth is to be inclusive, it needs to be based on what the public wants and feels and needs.
One thing that would help public and private cooperation is time. It takes a lot of time, and given the time, there will be interesting and very good solutions.
I think it's important to emphasise the role that a binding mission can play in helping to bring together the private, public, third sector and citizens themselves in this endeavour that has to be inclusive growth. We've had so many problems with inequality and poverty that have persisted over the centuries, over the decades, that we've got to call time on that. And if inclusive growth is going to be the way in which we're able to do that, we need to really put that binding mission at the heart of everything that we do.
In terms of building better relationships across public, private and third sectors, I think the role of metro mayors can be a real game changer. They've got the soft powers, the convening powers to be able to bridge across the diverse networks within cities and really make a difference to the inclusive growth agenda.
I think the most important thing to build collaborative networks is to focus on task, is to focus on a clear challenge that you're trying to resolve and have specificity about the kind of success you want to have. Too often, I think, collaborative networks occur or try to occur, and they're just around general principles of working together. What we find works best in the United States in particular is to focus on task. Are we trying to reduce childhood poverty by 10%, by 25%? Are we trying to increase access to opportunity through new transit or mobility strategies? So what are we trying to do? And that will tend to motivate and drive the collaboration forward.
If we at the Joseph Rowntree Foundation could see one thing happening to really make inclusive growth happen, is that everybody really sitting down in the private, the public and the third sectors and talking about and understanding that growth needs to happen, but it needs to be good growth that really brings people with that. The more talking, the more convening, the more really working in partnership, then we can really make this happen.
To build great relationships, it's so important to have a common view, a common vision on how a city is going to move forward. So taking the time to understand what the needs are, then developing that strategy, getting the buy-in and mobilization of everybody, critical to success.